You're good. All right.
We're good.
Good afternoon. Howdy, everybody. Today is Thursday, July 8th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Today we are having a budget work session with the Coppell City Council. Let's just remember tonight is to listen and learn. We're going to have 4 organizations that are going to be presenting. And from our standpoint, every short-term decision that we can make will have long-term implications. And our long-term change can only happen with collaboration and consideration and consensus. We're going to be listening to the organizations talk tonight, and we're going to be going through the organizational process that we put together several years ago. Remember that these are not rules, it's just a guideline. We put these in place to make it convenient to do business, and we can change those at any time. So with that being said, citizens' appearance is up next. We have one person signed up to speak so far, Mr. Burroughs.
Yes. On council, do you need an address?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. 138, one page, right.
You're so experienced with this.
I know. I think you just put my name. Okay. I want to thank council member John for sending this out on his Facebook page, and so I went and downloaded some information. And it appears that our overall service organization funding request is going up by about $50,000 this year, and give or take some few numbers. And last year it was $236,560. Well, that's an increase. A lot. Okay. These are all wonderful organizations. Maybe the Coppell Chamber of Commerce could learn to live on its own. I would suggest cutting them some. Don't turn them off all right now. Let them start winning themselves off the city. The Historical Society, I have no idea what they do. Kind of like joining that. Metro Press Services is a great organization, but maybe they need to be raising their own money. The Arts Council, how do I join that? Christian Community Action. In the last 15 years that I've been here in town, I probably helped got 200 donations to this place. The question there is, what happens when the Islamic community action, or the Buddhist, or the atheist, or somebody else? I don't really know that we need to be supporting them. I think they're a great organization. I today was driving through their thing, donating something that I picked up off the street that was going to go in the landfill. And we just need to cut back. The Children's Advocacy Center of Denton County, that has nothing to do with the city. That's a county, state, or federal level. Again, it's a wonderful thing, but the purpose of you folks here is to put out these streets and the parks and the water and take up the sewer and the police and the libraries. My hometown doesn't have any money to give out to these. How many sidewalks could you build? How much debt could you pay down? An increase of $50,000, which is close to somewhere around an 18 to 21%. Well, I'm glad that you guys got that extra money, because I don't in my budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We had no one else signed up to speak. Was there anybody that came in that would like to say anything? All right, thank you very much. Moving on. Mike?
Actually, this is Jennifer, Camera, Casey, Kim, so for the next month.
Okay. So Ms. Kimberly.
It is Ms. Kimberly is going to be introducing the service org process overview.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We would like to begin this evening with providing you some history and an overview of the service organization process. In 2016, a subcommittee comprised of 3 council members was created to examine the service organization fund management process. And the results of their work is documented in the memo that is included in your binder this evening. The memo provides background information. It provided process problems and associated issues, as well as recommendations. Based on those recommendations that were outlined in the memo, there are 9 organizations which are highlighted in blue on the schedule that's provided in your binder that would qualify to present this evening. Mayor Mays did request each of you to vote on which service organizations you'd like to present this evening. And based on your votes, the top 4 were asked to come present to you. You will hear, as it's shown on the agenda item, from the Coppell Arts Council, the Coppell Community Chorale, Coppell Community Orchestra, and Coppell Family YMCA. So after you hear from each of the service organizations, we will go through the list that's in your binder for you to provide guidance on the funding for each of the service organizations that have submitted for requests. Are there any questions? Okay.
I'd like to make one comment on the list of service organizations. The Arts Foundation, $25,000, they pulled their request. So that one is 0 now.
Anybody have any questions on the process or some of the thoughts about what we're doing and how we did it? All right.
I'll turn it over to Casey.
Next.
I was going to say, and I think we're a little ahead of schedule, which never happens with these. The Arts Council is scheduled to start at 6:30. So we've got 20 minutes if you would like to discuss anything else.
They are here.
The
Well, we'll just change our order up a little bit and invite our representatives from the YMCA.
All right.
We can absolutely do that. Yes, are you ready?
7:30 to 6:30.
The early dinner for you.
Good job. Good job.
I thought Anthony was just here for the goodness of his heart.
Just made a wrong turn.
Make a wrong turn that way.
Yeah, what about that? I only made a figure.
Well, good evening, and thank you for considering our direct proposal for the Coppell Family YMCA. My name is Willie Lees. I'm the Vice President of Operations, and I worked over here at the branch since June 1st of last year. We kind of did a reorganization that came out of COVID. I have the pleasure of being a part of the Coppell community now and working alongside a great group that we have here. We made a request for, there we go. We made a request for $30,000 this year, a little bit of an increase from where we've been in the past. And we do so. I want to talk a little bit about our programs and then come why that request and where that comes from, and then open up for questions I'm sure that you may have. Many of you are familiar with the YMCA. Here are some of the programs that we do. We do a program called Safety Around Water, which is, we do that in Coppell and Irving, as well as throughout the Dallas area, where we go into apartment complexes and do water safety instruction for free. We also do that in our camp program, and we have our camps that swim at the YMCA a couple of times a week, where we provide swim instruction for free to those folks, those campers and those folks that are in there. So that's part of our process to make sure it fits with what our mission statement is and what we do to give back to all as well. But we do offer after-school and summer day camp, which I think most of you are aware of. We had the privilege of being a camp for essential workers last year during the shutdown for COVID, and the city was very helpful in partnering with us to make sure we're able to do that in a very productive way. We do service our teams through programs such as Youth in Government. We offer the normal sports programs that you're familiar with, as well as we're starting cricket this year. We've heard a lot from our community that that's a sport that's happening in our community, and we can be a part of it. So we have a couple of board volunteers who kind of help us identify how to go about that. So it's a sport we're offering starting in 2021. And then we do our community health programs, our chronic disease prevention, like pre-diabetes prevention, and childhood obesity programs, our Get Up and Go programs, where we service the families and kids as well. These are our memberships and who we serve, specifically in memberships as well. We have adult, senior, young adult, teen. And I think the family membership fell off of that screen, but that's our largest group is our family membership. It's about 2/3 of our membership right now, a little under 2/3 of folks that come in our family. So we did request $30,000 in support for this year. We have tracked a little bit ahead so far to the first half of the year. When we filled this out, we were ahead of the subsidies and scholarships that we provided into the community. And just under 80% of our users and our participants, our members, are Coppell residents. So folks coming right from the community. So traditionally, between our child care, our membership, our programs, we had been distributing about $100,000, and that's what we planned on this year. And we're actually trending ahead of that right now through 6 months out of the year. So we'll probably forecast about $125,000 in subsidies and scholarships by the time we get to the end of the year. So some of that is in part to folks coming in with a different story. So we'll substitute folks who make a request, and then up to a certain percentage. And then if they have a deeper case, we ask them to provide a little bit further information, a little bit more documentation. And I just had I had the pleasure of sitting down with a mom just this afternoon. I scholarshiped her for free for 6 months, and then a reduction reduced rate of 75% after that. She's going to come back and visit with me in 6 months, and we'll talk about what her situation looks like. But just to personally hear the stories, it gives us an opportunity to go, we're here for all, and that's what we have to do, is be here for all when the case is needed. That is our presentation. I'm open for any questions that I can help and answer to support the application that we turned in or the presentation. Thank you for your consideration.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the presentation. We appreciate it. You mentioned the cricket. You identified a location where you're going to have the cricket pitch?
Yes, and it's the field over by the airport. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. We have soccer. There's the baseball field out there with the batting cages, and the name of the field just dropped out of my head.
So it's not in Coppell.
Yes, it is in
Is it wagon? No.
Wagon wheel. Yeah,
Oh,
the practice field. I think it's the practice field.
By the water
Yeah.
tower?
Okay. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, that's all.
Kevin?
So, obviously, you stated that you increased your funding request from $20,000 to $30,000. Specifically, are you looking to subsidize more families with that additional $10,000? I saw the story there and that narrative. Is there any additional use that you want to use for that extra $10,000?
Yeah, and thank you. I should have been a little bit more clear in that. But the extra $10,000 really comes from internally. Our child care and our branches work a little bit separate. So when our child care operates out of Coppell, they're out made off. So in conversation with our executive, that's the need that we've seen the greatest is in child care from coming out of COVID specifically. So that's where we had some conversations about how can we use it. So really it's to help subsidize the families and kids for child care specifically. And the $20,000 was kind of a branch operation request. So that's really specific in how we want to be able to utilize that as to get scholarships to kids that need to be in the program. Thank you.
One more thing. You said 80% of the members are from Coppell. Did I hear that right?
78% of our participants and members last year, as we track, or excuse me, in 2019, not last year, being an anomaly.
So would that imply that about $78,000 or $79,000 of your $100,000 scholarships is going to Coppell residents?
Yeah, all things being equal.
Okay. Without being, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah. John?
So I understand that 78% are Coppell residents, but in terms of the subsidizing, do you have a percentage breakdown as to what percentage is actually the residents and what percentage, if it is, that's not residents of
The
Coppell?
scholarships and subsidized
Yes.
residents, I don't have that figure accurately. I think at his point, probably on a one-to-one or an equal basis, it would be roughly the same, but I'm happy to get that information if needed.
That actually would help me,
Yeah.
considering the fact that we're actually, I mean, this is to actually help the residents, and nothing against those that are not, they're not residents, but at the same time, the purpose is to help. If it's to help the residents, I'd like to see that actually, funding, subsidizing more residents in that.
Sure.
And then as far as the membership fee wise, and what you collect with that, how much of a shortfall do you have from operating budget?
So we run at a deficit at our location.
How much of a deficit are we talking about?
And if you go back, so this year it's about a $200,000 plan, and we're ahead of that a little bit by $50,000 halfway through the year.
So aside from the membership fees, and aside from $30,000, what's the next big, I guess, source of funds?
Our programs, so swim team, swim lessons, sports programs would be next. So those are kind of our two main funding sources. We also do ask, as a charity, we do ask for direct donations.
And then as far as the hours during the pandemic situations, was the hours kept at the same, or was it reduced, or was there any change from that point?
Yeah, so we closed March 13th, and we opened up June, I think it was June 8th. I don't think we opened up on June 1st. So we were closed during that time. So since then, we've had some modified hours until the beginning of the year, and then we've opened up back to our full hours.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
During the closure time, we did operate an essential, I think some of the folks here, we did operate an essential child care, which is a free child care for essential workers, frontline workers during that time. Anybody else?
Cliff, Don? Not to put you on the spot. Yeah, so okay. All right, well,
I have one. So for childcare, you mentioned that childcare was a big, I guess, portion of it. What's the number of children that are actually taken care of during the COVID and currently?
During the COVID time, so during the time of, I don't have a specific number because it extended a little bit. I'm happy to get that. Typically, we have about 4,000 kids that we take care of over the course of a year, and those are unique kids, so coming each week, each time. So that would be in a non-pandemic. We would go back to 2019 timeframe.
2019 was 4,000 a year. And then this year, what's the number so far?
So this year we're tracking about 60 to 70% of what our number was in 2019.
But you're asking for additional 10,000 to spend that money for childcare in anticipation, you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, so that's something we've never looked at, and two, we're finding an increase in requests in our childcare area for folks like the lady I was talking to this afternoon, who's single mom, doesn't have a job right now, medical bills, 3 kids. She wants to put them in a safe space.
So the child care, is that when they're, just throughout the day, if they want to drop them off, not that when they're actually using the facility or anything like that, but they just want someone to take care of their kids while they're out and about?
So the child care is our after-school program and also our camp program. So right now it's all day throughout the summer. During school, it's aftercare program.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, just on your numbers being down because of COVID, since schools were remote, that contributed probably to your numbers being down, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, is YMCA treated as a business in the city of Coppell?
No, it's a charitable organization.
And also, they were eligible to apply for some of the federal subsidies due to COVID. Any of these federal programs that passed?
Yeah. So now I have to get more detail from our chief financial officer. But we were not eligible for the small business loan. But it did not make sense to apply.
Okay, any of the grants that we provided to the city, were they?
We provided,
Yeah,
COVID-19 funds, yes.
we did receive funds for our central child care work.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
saying.
We did do that.
Right, that's what I'm saying, okay.
And that was how much?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get.
It was $78,000.
There you go, okay. Yep. That's an additional money that we received from the federal and we passed on to the YMCA.
It was the money that we received from the county, which then we came to the council, and you approved funding for the essential workers child care program.
So that's addition to the 30,000, 20,000 we paid to them.
No, not really, because it wasn't coming from us. That was federal money.
We just passed through.
It was just a pass-through.
I understand. What I'm saying is,
But they
we provided, we allocated 20,000 last year, and we paid, right? This last year, they asked for 20,000 and we paid 20,000.
Right.
Plus 78,000 through the federal program.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right. John?
You said the 10,000 is primarily for childcare, right? The increase, the 10,000 increase.
Correct, for
Okay.
this year.
So, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but would you anticipate that levels would return to
Yes.
normal next year or something? So this would be more of a one-time. I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball to predict that, but potentially a one-time situation where you have this increase like this.
You know, I hope not, actually, because it means our programs are getting back to where they were. Right now, we finished the school year at about, it was under 70%, between 60 and 70% of our 2019 numbers. We're already seeing growth to get back to close to where we were in 2019 as schools are starting to align back to a regular schedule and the hybrids going away and that sort of thing for this coming year. We predict it will be close, if not at, our 2019 numbers.
Okay, so the 10,000 is not funding. I'm trying to reconcile all this. So you're under your 2019 levels at the moment, right?
As we finish the school year this year,
Okay.
yes. We're about 70%, a little under that.
Okay. So if your programs hold, this might be a continued need in the future.
And what we've seen, though, is the amount of scholarship is actually greater despite having less numbers
Okay.
because of people's situations.
So if that reverses, I mean, at some point, you
Sure.
would think the scholarships would,
Level off.
yeah.
We kind of get back to our normal percentage number
Okay.
from the past. We would expect that, yes.
Okay. All right.
Out of curiosity, if somebody comes in and say, I need help, how are they processed? And how do you, what do you require and how are they determined that you are going to give them?
So we have a complete financial aid form that we ask them to fill out with full like financial data, and then we ask them for their income tax forms to support that. And we have a sliding scale then, anywhere from 20 to 50%, based on what that looks like. And then if they have a greater need, like the example I used, sometimes people will write like a letter, and we'll sit down and just sit across the table and talk to them and say, tell me what's going on. So that's kind of an extreme case, but it does happen more frequently than we'd like to think. But typically it's just filling out paperwork and providing some financial data to support that, and then like I said, we'll give 20 to 50% typically, and it can be more of extreme cases. Does that help?
Yeah, and then you mentioned 6 months down the road. Is that the time frame you reevaluate?
Typically it's every year. Typically we do it in the month.
Yearly. Okay.
For everybody, this is an extreme example where I kind of made an executive decision to help this lady and her family get back on her feet. That was just, like I said, a one-off. But we do it yearly, provide more documentation that you're still in the same situation.
Yeah, one more question. You mentioned, you stated 78% of the membership is from Coppell residents. Out of that 78%, what percentage is getting Coppell residents, subsidies for the Coppell residents? Do you know the percentage?
I don't. I think that was a similar question. I don't have the residents who are being subsidized with scholarships. Don't have that figure. I'm happy to get it. I'm happy to provide it to the group.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else?
Cliff.
Thank you, Mayor. Sounds like to me that the situation that you have is that you are optimistic, I guess, that in 21, I don't know exactly when your year ends when school ends. Is that about?
We're on a calendar year.
Calendar year,
yeah.
Okay. For the calendar year, it sounds like to me that you're going to be deficit as a relationship to 2019.
Yeah.
And that's sort of your base year.
Yeah.
Because 2020 doesn't count. You were down. In that year, in the year that we have coming up, plus I guess a part of 22, you're anticipating that you will be back close to the 2019 numbers. But you've got this child care situation, which is sort of spiking as it relates to 2019, maybe. In other words, there's a greater need, which has come out of the
need is greater.
Yeah, come out of the whatever the situation has been for families generally, whether it's their Coppell families or other families that you serve. So kind of, and so you would like to have an additional $10,000 to specifically target that spike that you're anticipating over the next year.
Yeah.
Is that basically what you're?
Should have had you do the presentation.
Yeah.
But you explained it well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that sort of sums it up. And you've already mentioned the fact that you don't have the detailed numbers to answer some of the questions, but overview, that's sort of what we're looking at. Right?
Yes. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time and appreciate the questions. If there's nothing else.
Well, thank you for coming and you guys, provide a valuable service to the community that's appreciated by everyone. And so thanks for coming out and making your case tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Anthony, you too. Thanks very much.
You bet. And for allowing me to get the line.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
You're welcome to stay. You are welcome to stay, by the way.
I appreciate that. My wife and son are going to appreciate that I'm going to be, dinner's going to be a little bit earlier. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
The last one first.
Oh, yeah.
Done. First official meeting. Easy. Look at these guys. They're going to be on time. I don't.
Next is going to be the Arts Council and Janet. Please help me.
I have thoughts.
Okay.
Where's
Get your slides ready.
That's a lot. I do.
No, she's ready to go. So, welcome to the work session. I'm sure that they've introduced what you're here for. So, This is the Coppell City Council. We're in work session, and you'll introduce yourself, and we'll let you get into the Coppell Arts Council.
Sure. I want to thank you for having me. My name is Janet Bidwell. I'm the Vice President of the Coppell Arts Council, and I'm going to give you a little overview of who we are. We actually are a group that reformed about 5 years ago because the city manager reached out to us. We are comprised of several arts groups in the community. There was a vision to start to build the arts community in the town as a response to what they heard from our citizens. And so we formed from the theater, the chorale, and Coppell Creative to reform the Arts Council. Since our inception, we've actually brought on the orchestra. We help facilitate and form them. And we have been joined by the Ballet Ensemble of North Texas. Okay. What we have done, the city reached out to us about wanting to install a public art installation in the town. But our town's very diverse, and they felt that that was a very big task for them. And so as artists, we came together and came back with an idea of, instead of purchasing an art installation, it made sense to us to do an outdoor exhibit that included more than one sculpture, but it included up to 10, that we allowed our community to vote on so we could see what their preferences would be, what types of art represented our community the best. And then from that, we would begin building our public art permanent collection. Since we've done that, we started out at Old Town. We now also have an art installation at Andy Brown, so we alternate every 2 years. So we have 10 to 11 pieces going in each part every other year. We have been in the process of purchasing public art for the community. If you see Red Pony, he's on the lawn of the Farmers Market Pavilion. We just actually last year received a donation from a resident that helped us secure the final purchase of that. So we're in the process of having it painted, and we're going to give it to the city. We were able to work with a group who wanted to donate funds to purchase Team Pro. So that's become a permanent installation that we placed in the city. We worked with the Friends of Coppell Nature Park. They wanted to install a sculpture, an eagle sculpture to represent the Boy Scouts that have served the park. So we worked with them to do a call for art, and then we matched their donations to provide funding for that. And then we have just purchased the Six Direction sculpture that's located at Andy Brown Park. So we'll be, once again, also painting it like Red Pony and then donating it to the town. Other things that we do is we develop the programming for the Arts Center. So we have an exhibit that goes in about every 6 weeks, a new exhibit. So we're responsible for doing the call for art, for placing the art, for having a juror come in and jury it. We also have plans to have artist meet and greet and opening receptions. We've been slow to do that because of the pandemic. We host weekly open studio meetups for artists every Wednesday. Right now it's during the day. The intent is for Wednesday to be an all-day meetup. So pretty soon we're going to bring the photographer groups to do Wednesday nights on certain evenings. We are finalizing a public art app. We're really excited about that. It's called AutoCast. It'll have all of our sculpture installations in town located on it. So if somebody's traveling to the DFW area, they want to see if we have a public art collection, they'll find Coppell on that app. Let's see. I talked about the public art, and we are currently fundraising to purchase a fifth sculpture to donate to the city. So we'll talk about that in just a second. These are the new sculptures from the grant funds that we received last year that we're bringing to Old Town. We have one more spot to place one sculpture. We had a lot of artists that were impacted by the pandemic and actually had to take jobs and weren't working as sculptors. We didn't have quite the entries that we would have liked to have seen. So we're actually working to do another call for art to fill that last slot. So these are the initial pieces, and you'll see one more piece that comes in. We have invited a few of them to come back, the ones that were at the senior center, because that facility was closed for a period of time, and so the community got to see it. As much so we've invited those artists to come back. This is an overview of our grant request. We have sculpture lease payments that we pay the artists. They lease their work to us for $1,800 for 2 years. We release a call for art, so there's some software that we have a membership to that all artists know about. So it does a good job of attracting artists. So that's what we do with that. We install signage at the base of all the sculptures. We had a little problem with some theft. We've got somebody that's designed some more bulletproof or plaques for us. So we're in the process of purchasing those that hopefully will be more secure. We host an event every year called Art Sip and Stroll, which is our major fundraiser that we do. So we take the gifts that you give us and we plant it into the city and we do great things for the city, and then we use it to leverage to raise funds to do even more things. So that's one of the ways that we fund the exhibits that we do at the Art Center. It's from our proceeds of Art Sip and Stroll. We have some miscellaneous expenses, operating expenses, and then we do allow our community to vote every year on which piece of art they like the most, and we give that artist an additional $500 from that. And then the sculpture that you see here, his name is Amos. He's built by a retired firefighter from, I think, the city of Mesquite, George Hensley. And this is the one that we're looking at purchasing now that we're doing fundraising for. We would actually like to gift it to the Art Center and place it as a landmark sculpture that if people are driving around looking for on that back parking lot, trying to find where the Art Center is, that he would be a beacon to people and identify that you found the Art Center. So with that, I think you'll have some questions for me. I know you said keep it short and sweet, so if there's anything I left out, feel free to ask me questions.
Thank you, Jenna. Appreciate you coming out and sharing. Council, do you have any questions? Kevin?
Number one, as a very good presentation, did you build that? Because it seems like you might have experience in government or something.
Yes. So I'm the director of Parks and Rec for the town of Addison, actually. So thanks for outing me.
Wasn't that an awesome presentation? It was great. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you.
Question. So you said $1,800 for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is that typically an upfront payment that you do? Is that amortized over the 2 years? How does that payments for those guys work?
We make the payment to the artist up front.
Okay.
We did have a little issue of some artists being real slow to pick up their work, so we've actually written into their contract now that if they don't pick it up within a certain time frame, that we then own and can do with their work. Some places will pay them half and half, but our whole goal here is to support artists, help support them in doing even better work, because we think in the long term it'll come back and benefit us, so we like to pay them up front.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
So one of the things that we need to keep in mind is this particular item is eligible for complete funding under the hotel occupancy tax. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So this is one of those funds that is available for this specific item. Kevin?
What qualifies this for the hotel occupancy tax? I'm just more curious.
Actually, in statute.
Okay.
Total revenues that are received in the hotel motel tax can be used for the Historical Society as an example. That's where their 10,000 would come from. And then all three of the arts requests would come out of the hotel motel tax. Again, it's covered by statute.
When
the restricted fund, basically.
Gotcha. When the HOT was passed, it had a very specific use, and those were all called out.
Okay, cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Don?
So you lease the sculpture, we lease the sculpture,
Mm-hmm.
you lease the sculptures and everything. So when it comes time to try to purchase, you identify which ones to purchase, and we purchase them. Does the council actually contribute to the purchase, or do you fundraise for the whole 100% to actually purchase it, or how does that work?
The purchases always come from private donations.
Okay.
So we've done that either from our proceeds from Art Sip and Stroll, from donations that we've had from residents, or from residents who felt very strongly that a piece should be purchased and left where it is. And then they've actually done some fundraising to help us with those purchases.
Okay. That makes sense. So I saw that there was a line item on the expenses for your budget for like $3,600 for sculpture purchase, but I guess that would technically come out of funds that you either raised with the Sip and Stroll or some.
So that one's a little unique. So last year at Andy Brown,
Mm-hmm.
we had an issue with artists. We selected our artists, And then a few of them were in states that were on lockdown that weren't supposed to be traveling because of the pandemic. And we had one artist reach out to us and offer the one for 6 Directions. He couldn't travel to pick up his work and actually offered to sell it to us for an unbelievable price. He's selling that to us for $2,500. And, but he also wanted us to take the other sculpture that he had there too, which was a little bit less. I think it was like 700, whatever that total gets us to the 3,000 something.
Okay.
So we actually used the lease fees to keep that and lease it, but that was our commitment to purchase from him, if that makes sense. So instead of leasing a piece of art with those funds, we actually purchased a piece because it was kind of a unique situation with the pandemic. We felt like it served us all because that's it. I think the price he has on that sculpture is $25,000, so we got it for 10% of the cost.
Okay. Well, that was going to be one of my other questions: is there an average amount for a sculpture? Or is it all over the map? I mean,
it's all over. I think King Crow, we paid, I think it was $5,000 for. One of the things I feel like I've become really good at is negotiating art purchase prices with artists, because that was a $10,000 sculpture that we were able to acquire for $4,000. The sculpture that you see that was at the Biodiversity Center, we actually contributed $4,000 for that, and the Friends of Coppell Nature Park paid another $4,000. We have that one specifically commissioned for that location. And then Red Pony, we've spent about $6,000 for that.
Okay, but typically that would be from private funds.
Yes,
typically
those are private funds that are coming from either donations that people have made to purchase or from our fundraiser.
Okay.
I'd like to give a little color on this. She is probably downplaying a little bit how the Arts Council got started. But before the Arts Center was even really on paper, a group came together, and I think you were one of the original ones, and was proposing to put art around the town. And we didn't really have a very cohesive art group other than the Theater Coppell and the Chorale. And those were working just kind of as independent groups. So, thanks to Jana, we've now got a very functional council, and, that's feeding into the entire program of art. And if you read the mission statement, there's a section in here on art. And quite honestly, when we wrote this, or when this was written, it wasn't clear how this was all going to come together. And so, she and her group have done an excellent job of bringing the program to us. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. I appreciate the support. One of the things that we kept hearing is there was a group of people that were artists in the community, and I don't think people realized how many artists we had and how many creative types we had. And just through some networking, we found the ability to take those people and start to give back to the community. And that's always been our mission, is to foster the arts in our community. And we've been able to do that through this.
John?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned that we actually purchased some sculptures.
Yes.
So how many sculptures do we currently own?
We have, let me go back here. So we currently what's happened is this sculpture has now been gifted to the city of Coppell. And this sculpture was funded by 2 groups and is located at the Biodiversity Center. These 2 sculptures, the Arts Council has purchased, but I believe, Mike, we have to go through a process, isn't that right, to officially give it to the city. So we wanted to get them painted and freshly painted, and then we'll hand that over. So you'll see that pretty soon. So a total would be 4.
So the ones that are purchased, are they basically permanent in that location, or?
Yes.
And is there an intention of going forward purchasing additional sculptures that are going to be permanent, or if not, how are they going to be kept?
So the goal would be to keep these sculptures where they were. If there was ever a city project that required the relocation, we make that clear to the artists that the town has the right to relocate or even decommission the sculptures if they saw fit. So they're aware of that. We understand that as we purchase sculptures that the number that we lease will go down, but we also have some funds that we can build new concrete pads in order to keep that number the same. Did I answer your question, or was it something different?
No. What I was worried about is there's going to be additional, I guess, fixed costs going forward if we're going to continue to purchase sculptures. I don't know whether they're going to be placed permanently at a location or because I think I heard that we actually rotate these sculptures.
We rotate up to 11 sculptures in both locations. So that's a total of 22. And then we have made a few of them permanent.
Okay. And going back to the slide where you had the, I guess, the breakdown of the cost, I just want to clarify one more thing, that when you say art, strip, and stroll, is that the cost that you would put forth to put that event, or is that something that you anticipate having, I guess, the source of selling the tickets or so forth?
So that is the cost that we're asking for help to hold that event. We bring in a band, we bring in some vendors, we have food offerings. We actually also out of pocket pay more than that $3,000. So we're contributing up to $3,000 or more. It just depends on the year on Art, Sip, and Stroll. And then we sell ticket proceeds, and then we also solicit sponsorships in order to get funds.
And if I remember correctly, this is not the first time that you're doing this. You've done this before, right?
Yes.
And so what was the return on the investment in previous
Sure.
I guess, events?
So our return last year, we had to pivot from Art, Sip, and Stroll, and we did a drive-in concert. And we really didn't have a significant return. It was in the couple $1,000 range for that return. We were just happy to be able to have an event and be able to offer something. We kind of took a different side from this is no longer fundraising this year. This is just giving people an art outlet to get together in a safe environment. Previous years, we bring in about $7,000 on Art, Sip, and Stroll.
And the $2,000 difference from previous year, how much of a impact on what area is that going to make?
The offset, we are operating, our budget is set up based on no proceeds from, we don't count on Art, Sip, and Stroll until we bring in those proceeds. So what we had last year, although we were in a deficit for our fundraising efforts, we still had a balanced budget because we hadn't spent more than what we were bringing in.
And as far as the staff, or are they 100% volunteers, or?
So our main volunteers are from the Arts Council, but National Charity League has also adopted us as one of their volunteer groups. And we really couldn't do what we do without them because they will show up with like 30 volunteers to help us. And they really are, when we have those events, they're sometimes our hands and feet. We couldn't pull it off without their help. So it's a great partnership for us.
So what was the name of the red, white, and blue piece in Andy Brown?
Let's go back. This one right here?
Yeah.
That one's named Six Directions.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I've always called that the Mickey Mouse one. So thank you very much.
You're not the only one that's named that. Yes. I love getting on Facebook and seeing people post pictures with art and Andy Brown. That happens more in Andy Brown than anywhere on social media. And there's a lot of references to the Mickey Mouse sculpture.
Okay, I don't feel bad now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana, for the presentation. Thank you for what you're doing for the city of Coppell and also Addison. I attend some of the events there. It's fabulous.
What?
Thank you.
Betrayal. Thank you. My question to you, follow up to what John asked. You're asking for the arts for $3,000 from us, and you said you will fundraise and you bring up an additional 3,000, that's 6,000 total. The return on the investment was total 7,000 or profit of 7,000?
Profit of 7,000.
That's right.
We're not spending 6 to make it happen.
Right. I just wanted to make sure. I heard that correctly. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you for your presentation this evening. It's very educational, and some of us are hearing this for the first time, so thank you very much for that. And bring us some more Mickey Mouses.
Okay, we'll get this one in. Thanks, I appreciate your
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, yeah.
All right, next up is the chorale. We're going to be stopping.
It's probably.
Anybody needs to go take a break, you know, it's time to do it.
We're going to go select John and reconvene.
What's that?
John will be presenting for the crowd, so.
Congratulations. You doing all right? It's been a long time since I sat in this room with you.
No.
What's going on? You doing okay?
You get into the river at all, or is it all too high?
It's too high because the lakes are too full and they're releasing water.
I noticed every time I go past there, it's like, probably way too full.
Okay. I know.
Oh, is she going to get him, or was she going for something else?
I thought she was going to go.
You want to get out there? There's some white water out there.
Hit your finger in the slide.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. This is a work session of the Coppell City Council. We're here to listen to the Coppell Community Chorale. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and what we're going to hear tonight.
My name is John Wilson. I am the first vice president of the Coppell Community Chorale. This is my 4th season as a member of the chorale and my 2nd term as vice president. My responsibilities for the chorale fall primarily in outreach and in fundraising, so that's why I'm here to present to you today. The chorale mission is pretty simple: to support, promote, and to sing choral music. Choral music actually goes back to the 15th century. That's the earliest we can find printed copies of choral music. It goes back before then, where they literally would just trade Anglican chants face to face. And so everything was different until they finally wrote it down. We are destined to inspire the community, enrich, and lead the Coppell arts community. Our goals are always to broaden the general audience, rebuild our membership, like many other organizations. During the pandemic, we lost members, and to increase our children's chorus numbers. Provide learning opportunities for the chorale, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, not only for the chorale members, but members of the general community, and to increase our diversity. In 2020, unlike a lot of other arts organizations, we never stopped being a choir. We figured it out. We were on Zoom for a couple of months. When the weather got nicer, we were outside. We recorded a couple of different concerts that we streamed last year outside. We did stuff virtually. We're actually in the Art Center before there were seats. It looked like it was a construction zone, but actually ended up being a pretty cool venue to make a video. So we kept going. The leadership of the chorale thought it was very important for all of our members who wanted to sing to be able to sing, whether it was in person or virtually. In fact, we've been happy to be part of the new Art Center since literally it was a hole in the ground. We did this video with the Art Center people. In 2020, we also introduced our children's chorus. Our children's chorus, they did the same thing. They started out virtually, started out on Zoom, learning songs from our director, Aaron, and then they eventually moved to doing live performances in the Art Center, and I think some of you may remember seeing us at the parade just last weekend. Our biggest thing for this summer is we're introducing a summer education series. We call it Everything You Want to Know About Singing But We're Afraid to Ask. what we have found out that over the years is that a lot of people want to sing in the choir, they're just intimidated. They think that we've been doing it for years and years. They don't have some basic music skills depending on their cultural background or where they come from. So we have put together 4 different educational opportunities, starting on the 19th with our director, Allison Hartzell, who will talk about the basics of music. Dr. Joshua Brown was our former director. He's now at Ouachita College. In our Advocacy, he will come back. The elements of music will be taught by our small group director, Nathan and Aaron, who's our children's director. And we're going to have Dory Clancy from the Vocal Majority talk about tips and things about being a good choir member. We think it's time to raise the music acuity, not only of our members, but just the general public. We've started selling tickets. We don't expect to make any money off this. We just expect it to be an educational opportunity. As we move into our season, which starts in October, we actually start our rehearsals on August 16th to prepare for the October show, and then we'll have 4 shows in what we call our regular season. What we're asking for today, we think, falls into 2 pillars of the Coppell 2040 elements. One is the importance of a learning environment. We think that there are a lot of opportunities in the city for children to learn different things. The Art Center has done some stuff where they're doing some hands-on arts and crafts. But this is an opportunity not just for young people, but for older people like me to learn a little bit more about music. And this will help us broaden our horizon, include more of the community who may or may not have any kind of music experience. We're just happy to be able to sing. So our proposed grant falls into 2 categories. The summer and fall classes, we're doing the summer classes this year because we didn't want to wait. And we actually started this plan before I was able to put a proposal together to the council. So we're going to do it this year, come hell or high water. But we're doing it on the low key. We're not able to provide textbooks for people. We're hoping to maybe give them an opportunity to buy some stuff on their own. And we're not going to be able to necessarily get all the instructors that we need. We're going to use our staffing, our 3 directors, and Josh, who would come in for. And then production and streaming. Part of what we learned in 2020 was the number of people who could watch our show that couldn't come to our show. Obviously, the Art Center was closed for a very long time. But what we found out when we were streaming is we were getting people from outside the area, outside the state. I think we even had somebody in England who actually watched our stream. So we discussed the opportunities to continue to stream, but the streaming is going to cost us money in 2020. And if we decide to keep doing that, we actually are going to need a little bit of budget help for the streaming. And that's basically it, short, sweet, and to the point. I'm here for questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the overview. You're not in the sales and marketing in the professional life, are you?
Yes, I am. Does it show? Yeah, I'm an old radio guy. I'm actually, it sounds cooler than it is. I'm in sports radio syndication, so I deal with sports radio stations all day, every day. Which, like I say, it sounds cooler than it is. They can get things like every other client.
Council, any questions? John?
So, thank you for the presentation, by the way. I understand that the streaming is something new that you're trying to embark on, and that there's really some cost into it. But as far as the class-wise, is that something new that you're presenting to us or providing as well?
Absolutely. The classes are brand new. What we have found is it's very difficult to teach a group while we're actually in our rehearsal space. Because we only allow 10 weeks from the time we start our first rehearsal to the time we have our first concert. We think that if we can raise the music knowledge in general, a rising tide, raises all boats, that we can actually start our people at a more unified level. What we find in the volunteer choir is we have people who have gone to school for music. We find former instrumentalists who come. It's a little bit different singing than it is, playing a trumpet, Kevin. But what we find is if we can raise that music knowledge, then we can get a little bit more out of our rehearsals and actually, put a better show on and make the new people. We lose people sometimes. They come, they just figure, they think they can't keep up, and they get frustrated and walk away. So the classes are designed to be like a jump start and then a continuing education that we want to do it again in the fall and then again, next summer too.
Currently, you do provide some sort of classes or things like that to the, I guess the members?
We teach them music as we go. A typical choir rehearsal is, we have a piece of music, maybe you're familiar with it, maybe you're not. The choir director will decide what part of that music is the most difficult to learn, especially in 4 parts. And they will teach the song. But what we find is there are certain pieces of vocabulary, there are certain terms that are only in vocal music that people don't understand. And so they find themselves struggling. So the idea of the classes is to get that educational level kind of at least an even keel.
And if I remember correctly, I think you charge fee to join the group.
Yes, right? we have member dues. Our member dues primarily cover, our biggest expense are our 3 directors, our accompanists, and our sheet music. And sheet music continues to go up. With the copyright law, we are required by law to have at least 1 piece of sheet music for everyone who's singing a song. So I'm sure we've all been someplace where you've gotten photocopies of sheet music and says, do not reproduce, so on and so forth. If we have 50 people on stage, all those 50 people have to have a piece of sheet music. And sheet music varies. It can run from $1.50 to $4.50, depending on the publisher and things like that. So the dues cover that basic role of the accompanists and our directors and our music costs.
And is there a plan to charge fees for the classes?
Yes, we are going to charge fees for the classes.
So how much do you expect?
We're currently charging $90 for all 4 classes, or $25 a class. What we've also learned in 2020 is if you give your art away for free, people say, I'll be there, and you end up with an empty room. So we think this definitely has value to people. I know in working with the directors and what they're doing as far as itineraries and lesson plans, they're already working hard to put something together. So we are going to charge them.
So how much do you expect to get back with the fee that you're going to be charging?
Actually, this year I hope to break even. I've got to pay my speakers. The art center, of course, unless we are over 80 people, we're going to use the reception hall. So I've got to pay my people. So literally, we just expect to break even. And again, that's because we can't provide notebooks or textbooks or anything like that.
Up until now, how have you been funded?
We're funded by our dues, and then we do fundraisers. We actually are very involved in North Texas Giving Day, which has become a big fundraiser for us, especially last year. We have fundraising events. We've kind of whittled them down to 3 times a year. We do a electronic recycling event. We use the Art Center parking lot. We advertise to our database to bring us old electronics. We work with a company out of, I think they're out of Greenville. They actually come and they pay us per thing, whether it's a phone, printer, a TV, and we do all the collections. They send the truck out. The truck prices everything out for us, and that has become something actually quite successful, especially in the past couple of years, as word keeps getting out that we're going to be doing it on a regular basis. Our next one is scheduled for September 18th.
And then finally, these are going to be recurring costs every year for the $8,000 that you're asking for?
I don't know about the production cost for streaming, because I'll be honest, we're considering not streaming, because we also think when we streamed our spring concert, it hurt us in ticket sales. Because if people don't need to leave their living room, they won't necessarily leave their living room. I'm thinking that if we can if the city can help us fund the classes, then the classes will be a money-making proposition, and we can roll the profits from one year to the cost of the next year.
Kevin? Kind of got it right there, but that was my question. If this was just a one-time ask, because I saw that looks like the first time that y'all have asked, or maybe a long time since y'all have asked.
Yeah, we actually, before I joined the chorus, we actually got money from the city for some equipment.
Okay.
Variations is our small group that has done stuff for the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. We actually got sound equipment. We needed some speakers and some microphones and a mixing board and things like that. So that is equipment that was a one-time purchase. We share that sometimes with the Arts Council people, but I think that was probably 5 years ago.
So my original question was this going to be a one-time request, or was it supposed to be like a jump start?
Yes, jump start is a perfect way to put it, Kevin. It's meant to be a jump start.
I know in the past, the chorale has done some joint programs with the orchestra, and I think with the theater. Do you have any of those plans for this coming year?
We would love to do more with them. Obviously, pandemic, really beat us up. We have done stuff with the orchestra. We did a Christmas concert a couple of years ago, which was tremendously successful. Like literally, people couldn't find a place to park. We've done some stuff with Pete's group, with the theater. I think I was actually a caroler at one point when he did his Dog Days of Christmas. I can't remember the name of it. So we want to do more. I personally think that being in the Art Center and having a unified place where people come in, that the synergy between the people that are just chorale fans will then see what's going on with the theater and vice versa. And again, it will raise everything up together. So.
Thank you. Cliff.
Thanks, Mayor. John, you indicated that you have some shows already lined up for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Do you know what the dates are on those?
I do. I don't have them with me.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, but they're available.
Yes, they are available.
Okay, because one of my problems early on in following you guys was not knowing until 10 days or so before the performance, and sometimes that's tough.
Well, with Alex, we have to submit our season pretty far in advance so we can make sure we're on the calendar.
Good for Alex.
So, and I think now that the Art Center is up and running properly, we're working much better with them as far as publicity and things like that. So, and personally, I will let you know.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. The chorale's been one of the foundations of the arts, one of the early parts. So thank you very much for.
Yeah, I think the chorale's been around for close to 35 years. Yeah, so it's been various sizes, and we love being in a new place versus the old box. Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, it's the sculpture.
So Vanessa from the orchestra is joining us, and she asked that
He's not effective.
these packets out.
No, you need to tell Jana they need to get that thing changed.
Mike, do you know why Coppell Art Center Foundation pulled their expenses?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool.
How's everybody today? Beautiful weather outside. So I don't have it yet.
So welcome to the Coppell City Council. This is our work session. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then go ahead and tell us about the orchestra.
Thank you, Mayor Mays and esteemed council. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Vanessa Johnson. I am the president of the Coppell Community Orchestra. I actually prepared some notes here that I'd like to go over for you, and I provided a packet today that sums up this information in greater depth. So first and foremost, we would like to thank the council for your support and for the beautiful facility that is the Coppell Arts Center. Whether it be rehearsal or performance, we are grateful for the facility, and we are honored each time that we take the stage at Coppell Arts Center. So thank you. The orchestra exists to provide concerts of the highest quality for the community of Coppell. Local amateur and volunteer musicians have the opportunity to play and grow as musicians. Young musicians in the community are supported through collaboration and inclusion in our activities and concerts. That is the mission of the Coppell Community Orchestra. It is our purpose to provide free concerts and performances within the community of Coppell, 100% free, 100% of the time. We offer educational opportunities through our instrument petting zoo and also through our musical repertoire. We believe that hearing composers and various types of music live can be both educational for adults and children alike. The orchestra offers 4 anchor concerts in addition to a summer series. We collaborate with other resident companies such as the Coppell Community Chorale, and in the next season, we will collaborate with the Texas Ballet Company. We are excited to continue to perform within the Arts of Minstrel as well as the Kaleidoscope Festival, and we hope to perform more within other city events held in the next year. In the last year, the Coppell Orchestra produced a video series called I Am Coppell Orchestra. It was put on our website as well as Facebook, and it allowed our members to introduce themselves to the community of Coppell and tell their stories about music and how it impacted their lives. And in turn, we invited the community to meet our members and find out about their experience in the orchestra and the effects of music. During our last season, during COVID, of course, we produced 3 live stream shows. And in our final concert, it was a combination of a live performance and also live stream. The live portion in the Art Center sold out. Our expenses break down into 3 categories, such as music, insurance, and administration, where the music covers the purchase and the reproduction of musical pieces for each individual member. So we have copies per person, per piece, and it can add up in cost significantly. We maintain insurance to protect the organization, the art center, the city, and also patrons alike. And our administration area covers the conductor's honorarium, the percussion rental, and also operational costs that may be related to printing, advertising, or technology. We're funded through individual and corporate donations in addition to minimal member fees and fundraisers and as well as grants. In our last year, we did not seek individual or corporate donations out of respect for the hardships that our community experienced, and we also waived our membership fees as well. With the grant that we received in the last year, we were able to continue forward during the pandemic, so we do thank the city for defunding in our last year as well. Our organizational goals are as such: growth in membership and programming, collaboration with other groups in the community and other business entities, and also to evolve our educational opportunities within our instrument petting zoo, but also in our video content that we provide. Our financial long-term goals are to become self-sustaining and that we can operate based off of individual and corporate donations, sponsors, and fundraisers. With the grant that we would receive in the next year, we would plan to continue music purchase and maintain our music library, to continue our conductor honorarium and percussion rentals, and to complement our educational initiative by producing video content and also adding instruments to our petting zoo. Now, what I mean by video content is not just putting videos of performance online. What we're able to do is we're able to educate the community about musical instruments, musical theory, and also interview other musicians and perhaps professionals who may have been music performers in the past. There are several studies that correlate music performance and education, such as English, music, science, academia. And so because someone performed as a child or as an adult, they were able to excel in their studies. And so we'd like to highlight these particular areas in academic and in performance. To close, I'd like to share a personal story. So I joined the orchestra when I moved here to Coppell in 2017. When I moved here, I knew absolutely no one. I sought connection with this community through the orchestra. But what I found in the orchestra was more than just a group of people to play with at the downbeat. What I found was a musical family. I found a community within this community, and I met so many people who introduced me to other community members and other beautiful areas within this community of Coppell. I bought my home here in 2019, and I now serve as the president after 2 years of having just began as a regular member off the road from San Antonio. So it's been my pleasure to serve this orchestra and work alongside other members who have extraordinary paths when it comes to music performance and volunteers with such great hearts that give their unpaid hours day after day. And so while we appreciate the city of Coppell and I appreciate the organization, we hope that the council will continue funding so that we can continue enriching the community, our program, for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Council, any questions? Just scoop was speechless. That's hard to believe.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Done.
So on the 2020, 2021, it looks like your membership fee projected was 2,200, but actual was 0.
That's correct. So in light of COVID, we waived our member fees so
Right.
that our members can focus on their families.
Right, and then when on the 2022 proposed budget, the membership fee is only $1,000.
Correct. So what we're intending to do is reduce our membership fees since we observed that there was some hardship in the regular season. So we're looking to reduce our member fees from a 75 down to a 25. So that way all members can, participate and not feel that they shouldn't be there.
Have you ever, because it has ticket sales, but you said that it's 100% free, so you never actually charge any ticket sales, right?
That is correct. We are 100% nonprofit, so we rely on donations and sponsorships. We offer sponsorships with our programming where local businesses can put in ads for their businesses. In our last concert, we actually had a few that decided to add their logos in our programming, such as Coppell Piano Shop and Coppell Music Academy. So with those sponsorships in the program, we're able to generate funding to help our overall costs.
I do appreciate nonprofits doing services for free, but at the same time, what that in turn actually turns out to be is that you're asking for an increase, which in turn the citizens are going to be funding this, so you could provide free to others. So, and I'm not sure how that really goes with me in the sense that 10,000 we've already provided, that's fine. But again, you're asking for an increase so that you can continue to provide free things to others when you could, in reality, maybe charge or sell tickets to get some of that back.
And one item, John, keep in mind that this is funded through the HOT.
I understand that.
So it's not actually coming out of the citizens.
I appreciate your comment. And for that end, the additional increase goes to help increase the educational opportunities that we can offer. So we can still provide the same services that we provide, but we can also expand these programs. So in addition to our petting zoo, we can offer educational material that can be shared within the community. So I would say that in addition to what we currently offer, the increase would be an enhancement for the educational opportunities.
Please excuse my ignorance, but I'm going to make an assumption that a musical petting zoo is that you have instruments out and like people get to handle them and kind of just become familiar with them. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. We don't encourage feeding the instruments.
Okay.
So yes. So we'll lay out the instruments on the table. Kids, adults can go and touch them. More often than not, when you go to a museum or you go to a place that has instruments on display, you can't touch them. So in this respect, they're able to touch them and handle them and see what it's like to actually hold that instrument. And we believe that, young children will be inspired to play instruments because they're able to handle them in this ordinary setting.
Are they allowed to get to try to make sounds and stuff with them?
We do have mouthpieces that they can blow into, so there is that, but typically we won't, give them the instrument and then pass it to someone else because there is, no condensation involved. So you try to keep things at minimum, but yeah.
Super splitter.
Just to clarify, so it appears the budget from last year to this year went up about $3,100. Does that sound about right? Just the overall budget, the expense budget. So is it related to the education piece that you just referred to, that you're expanding those education, and that's what the cause for the increase in budget?
So last year was interesting, right? And that COVID just totally flipped everybody's organization. And that we had to go completely virtual versus in person, so we had to reinvent our program. So what we found out was that we were recording our members from home and also in the art center with iPhones and with, Samsung ordinary state phones. So we found that we could use video equipment to produce this content on our own to, give to the public for educational purposes. So with some of the equipment that we can purchase with that funding, we'll be allowed to do so and offer that program.
Okay.
But the idea came from the fact that we were, using our own personal phones and selfie sticks in order to produce our concerts.
Okay, so So actually, so some of this increase might actually be for equipment purchases.
Correct.
If I'm understanding.
That is
what you're saying.
correct, yeah. So it would go toward equipment, it would go toward the additional instruments that would be in the petting zoo.
Okay.
Perhaps some that are non-standard even, just to kind of give a variety on what kind of instruments are out there.
Okay.
I've never seen a didgeridoo or didgeridoo, but you can possibly offer more range. And, education is all about range and exposure to different areas, so that everyone can do something well.
Okay. Thanks.
Kevin?
I know you had said something in the presentation about working towards the group becoming self-sustaining financially. What does that look like? I understand, we've had some hardships specifically due to COVID and setbacks and things like that, but what is the path and the plan to make this a self-sustaining organization?
So we would develop more on our sponsorship side. We developed a program where there are different sponsor levels. We started to put that into effect last year, but then right as COVID hit, we had to discontinue that. But there are, certain levels and certain perks that they can receive. So those are higher value increments that are available to us. And then also we have a fundraising committee who can evaluate other artistic endowment grants that might be out there, but also other fundraiser opportunities. One thing we discussed was that we can have it is a contest for musicians to be able to play, and they would pay an entry fee to be able to play a particular piece, and they would be judged based on the level of difficulty. And then the winner of this particular contest would get to be featured as a soloist in the next season. So we have different fundraisers, even a ball where people can pay entry to dance, and we talk, dance instruction, and we would play the music for waltzes and so forth. So there's a lot of fundraising ideas that we would put into effect to help us raise these funds. And then we would also evaluate on a quarterly basis to see what we can increase or what we can improve upon. Previously, we didn't have that capability, but now that we have more persons in our board, in our general board, we can grow.
What does the timeline of that look like in ideal conditions? Like when do you think that you might be able to implement a lot of these ideas? Because they do sound like great ideas. So.
Well, for the ball and for that contest, we anticipate that would happen within the next year or two, depending on with the ball, you have to really plan that out. So it could be within the 2023 year. As far as self-sustaining, with COVID and not knowing, what the future is like, especially with variants and so forth.
That's a tough question.
It's hard to gauge the exact amount. I would love to, because I'm a goal reacher. I'm a go-getter. When I entered the organization, I said, hey, let's do it within, the next year or two. They were like, whoa, no, that's great, but it may take a few more years. It could take within the next 5 years. But we do have, several individuals that are dedicated toward making that happen. If I had to gauge, I would say, within the next 5 years if possible, but hopefully less than that.
Thank you very much.
I know that we just heard from the chorale just previously, and John was talking about how expensive the sheet music was, and I know orchestral music is at least as expensive. Are there any kind of programs that you can participate in that you borrow from other organizations in the area, or is it everybody for themselves?
It is primarily everyone for themselves. I've not seen any programs like that. I do know that there are some pieces that we were looking at which were rentals. So in that respect, there is a shared database out there, but it requires fees, licenses, of which are a couple $100. And so if we only rent one or two pieces, it doesn't seem, like a wise purchase. But yes, pretty much we have to purchase each individual piece and then reproduce them all.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Well, thank you for coming tonight, and as the city's, I think, newest group, is that right?
We're pretty young.
Most recent. Welcome to Coppell, and thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Is there anything like an interlocal agreement type of thing that we could do with other communities?
So that's what I was asking.
That's kind of what I would.
But I'll tell you that if there would be nothing to keep you from doing that. The trouble is you heard John talk about how you have to have a piece of music for every person performing.
Oh, yeah.
Or it can't be a copy.
Mm-hmm.
What they are paranoid about is losing one sheet of music. Because when you lose that one sheet of music, then the entire arrangement is usually useless.
Mm-hmm.
And so most organizations are very paranoid about their original music.
I just didn't know if there was any kind of cost sharing thing we could do with other communities to try to.
That was why I was asking her the question.
Licensing will still be the same. Each individual has to pay for it.
Well, but if there's like if there's like a master license and then you have like the individual sheet music, maybe you save money on that, like master rental thing. I don't, so.
All right. Well, I wanted to give a little background on the way that we selected the 4 organizations to come before us tonight. You all filled out surveys and sent them back to me. I took those, put them together, and actually I was paranoid about it because you never know what you're going to get back. But it was very easy this year. There were 5 organizations that had 2 or more votes. And so those were the ones that were selected. And the Arts Center Foundation opted to withdraw their application, so we were down to 4. The bottom line was we heard everybody where this group put together at least 2 votes or more. So if there was a group that you requested and it did not come before us today, it was because you were the only person that requested it. So I hope it works out smoothly next year.
Was it also that if they haven't asked for increase, then they don't really need to present it? Is that not?
No, I could have used that, but I didn't have to because it was, and there was a couple that, for example, the Advocacy Center, they actually increased theirs. No one, I don't remember. I think there was one person asked for that one. My view on theirs, they do such a thorough job of documenting their usage and their percentage of the population that they serve. They've just been rock solid as a partner for the city. So anyway, that was what we did tonight. What do we do? What do you want to do now?
You're going to have a discussion, but typically what y'all do is you go through to see kind of the proverbial, launching through, right?
All right. So does everybody have the list of organizations?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to give if we can, we've got enough time. Let's go through the funding request and just kind of do a very preliminary, cursory sanity check on what's being asked and what we think that we're looking at. Remember that the Arts Center Foundation has withdrawn their $25,000 request. I'd also like to remind everyone that the Arts Council, the Community Orchestra, and the Community Chorale and the Historical Society are all eligible for HOT funding.
Can I ask a question to Mike? Sure. Can you please tell us total amount collected through HOT so far this year, minus the incentives given to Coppell?
Will that be the amended budget number? So far, year to date, $153,946. Last year, $348,718. The year before that, $366,000. The year before that, $307,000.
So 153,000, right?
Today,
yeah. That's minus the incentives given to the hotels, right?
No,
they're not. From what
it's 133.
Yeah, after the 133, the tax is rebated by your question.
Right. So out of 133, how much we given out for these type of programs?
Well, you have to go look at the allocation from 2021.
That's the only ones that we use that fund for
the hot tax. Yes, it's restricted. It's basically 15% of the revenue.
So my question is, let me clarify, let me qualify. Out of the 133, if you take it,
We've met our obligation to the Coppell Arts Council of 25,000. The community chorale didn't ask for a thing, and the community orchestra asked for 10. So those have been paid.
35, 45?
Well, and then 10,000 for the Coppell Historical Society, but that's not. It's part of the hot tax, but it's not the same restriction.
Okay, so close to 50,000.
Yes.
Okay, so 133 minus 50, what's that amount we can use for? 133,000.
It can be used for Convention and Visitors Bureau. There's a list in the statute that talks about it. Could be used for actually it could be used for the some of the Arts Center because of the kind of public meetings they have over there. But we're not spending it.
The list is on the bottom of that. The various percentages.
The Historical Society can get up to 50% of the revenue. Convention and visitor information, facilitate convention registration, promoting sporting events, enhancing sporting facilities, transportation system for tourists, directional signage, and advertising just in general for the community. So those are it is a specific restricted fund. It can only be used for those purposes. But very specific.
Right. So in the past, did we have any balance?
Oh, no, our fund balance, is this right now, Jennifer?
This is as of June 30th, yes.
Yeah, $511,000.
Thank you.
Keep in mind, this is a relatively new revenue source for us.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't have.
That's what I'm asking. That's why I asked that question. How much have we collected so far this year?
Don, the ballet is doesn't come out of hot, is that right?
Oh, it can.
Oh, it can? Mm-hmm. So it's in there too, okay. Is that right? So there's 5, is that right? There's 5 entities? I missed that one, I'm sorry.
If I can ask, the Ballet Ensemble of Texas, what group is that?
They put on the Nutcracker.
Is that the one behind Taco Bell?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the Art Center is now their home.
Do they vacate their building?
No, it's their home for presentation.
For the president. So they're going to do the Nutcracker there?
They are modified, but they use the Urban Art Center because of the seating capacity.
They traditionally have gone down to Irving for the Nutcracker and all their other
So they're bringing it here?
Yes, they're going to be doing more here.
Perfect.
I can't tell you how many.
No. Thank you. That's right. That's what I wanted to know.
So to try to clarify a little bit, so we got 67,000 in requests for those 5 cultural things. So we got a fund balance over $500,000 plus. We're probably going to get over $300,000 in new money this year. Is that
the budget for next year?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, is that ballpark what we're talking about?
I would say yes, but it's really hard to tell because of the COVID rebound.
Okay.
I don't know that when we budget $350,000.
But the other 2, but we got $500,000 fund balance to begin with, and then whatever
comes in on top, and then we have reducing. I guess Sheriff at 4 Points still has a reducing percentage of their rebate as far as the tax refund that comes in from their hotel motel tax.
Okay.
It's the way that the council did that agreement. It was a reducing amount as far as refund each year.
Okay. But that fund will cover this. So these cultural requests are 67,000. Okay. I'm just trying to get straight sources of funds and things like that.
Yeah, it just basically do those with the Historical Society as well. You do those as a separate funding source. They're not coming from the general fund.
Okay.
All right, that was Historical Society, Orchestra, and then chorale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ballet ensemble.
Ballet, and then also the Art Council.
Yes, there were 5. If I counted correctly, is that correct? Those 5?
Yes.
Would the Arts Foundation, would that 25,000 also qualify for that funding source?
It would have qualified. I don't know that we would because of the percentage, Jennifer and I just
Oh, okay.
worked it out. There's a limit to
Oh, I
how
see.
it can go.
Okay, but it would have qualified if we were within whatever the limit is. Okay.
And the other source could have been the RDC.
Okay.
So just a little history back, I guess 7 or 8 years ago. What's that? Before Mike. There were 4 different groups that were set up to be funded as a service organization. And it was a really kind of just a pot of organizations. And so there was a subcommittee formed to kind of divide those into something that made some sense. And those are listed in your packet. And the hard one was the arts and culture, because that was hard to John's point, that was coming straight out of your citizens' pockets with no tangible value. The critical social needs like MetroCrest, CCA, the Woven Health Clinic, the Children's Advocacy Center, those are all based on a percentage usage of the citizens of Coppell. They're very clearly based on a use model. And in fact, all of those, if we had to turn around and provide the service for any one of those without that agency doing it, we would be spending a lot more money than what each one of these individual agencies is asking for. The arts and culture is a little different because they didn't fall into that category. It was basically just a sink until we started getting the hotels and we were able to take advantage of the occupancy tax. So this was all part of a longer range plan that we're just now starting to be able to benefit from.
Okay. Helpful.
And to clarify, did you say that was actually just a city charter, or is that the state mandate?
Statute. No, it's not a mandate. It's a state statute. It's a law.
All right. Anybody have any other questions? Yes, sir.
I've got one, and I don't know if anybody has something to back up. This on the Advocacy Center, and it's almost too small to worry about, but their data shows that our what they call fair share should be $3,400, $3,100, something like that. But then the request is for $64, and I couldn't reconcile where the $6,400.
Didn't they send through in
They sent the revised one, I think.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I pulled up on the SharePoint was still had the 30.
There should be 2 on the SharePoint.
Okay, I pulled the wrong one. Sorry.
Your fair share request is now $3,400.
Okay, well that's okay. So I still don't. I'm still missing something then.
So why can't they request 16?
Because I never could find. I saw the 3,400, but I never could find how they got to 6,500 essentially.
Originally, their request was for a higher amount because they were including more citizens, and then they revised their methodology to exclude adults.
Okay.
Okay. They're amending their request.
So the request
really 34.
is 34. Is that
As opposed to 65?
is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay, so it should be 34.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm just going to go down the list, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on this. This budget, and I'm not going to get down into the nickels and pennies of it, but this is about 0.42% of our annual budget, city's annual budget, 0.42%. We're going to spend about 2 hours tonight on this, and if we spent the same amount of time on every budget item in our budget that Jennifer and team have prepared, we would be up here for over 500 hours. Just to give you an idea.
Kevin's got some work done.
Rather not spend 500 hours, but I also want to be thorough.
Well, just let you know. All right, let's talk about, anybody have any concerns with the ballet ensemble requesting 7,500? They've been consistent with this for the last number of years. Okay. Children's Advocacy Center in Denton County. And by the way, this is for those residents of Coppell that do utilize that facility. It's not and it is based on our population at 3,400. All right. Christian Community Action at 15,000. Coppell Arts Council at 27,000. This is a $2,000 increase over last year, and Jana did a pretty good job of explaining what they're doing. Okay, Coppell Chamber of Commerce at 45,500.
And there's no change from last year, right?
That's correct. Okay, Coppell Community Corral at 8,000. This was a new request. They had not requested funding previously.
So, I do have something to say about this. From what I understood was that it's likely that the $4,000 for the streaming might not be needed, right? Because they were still not 100% sure about it. And I don't feel comfortable funding something that they might not go forward with just so they could have it just in case. So even with that, even with the classes that they're going to provide, they're going to be getting back some by charging registration fees. So I don't see the need to fund $8,000 at this point to start them off. I understand they have not asked for it in the past, but to start at $8,000, and which is going to be a recurring cost, to me, I think that's excessive.
Yeah, I agree. I support 4,000.
So you don't want them to do streaming?
If I heard it clearly, I think that they said that it wasn't definite, that they were kind of contemplating on it.
We can set it up two ways. We could set it up where they get the $4,000 for the classes, and then they have to provide us documentation that they've done the streaming to get their second half.
But even with the classes, they're supposed to be getting some back by having registration fees. So what I'm saying is, if they're going to recoup some, why fund 100% when they are actually going to be getting some back by charging the fees? And I think that should be encouraged. If they're going to charge fees, recoup some of that back and use that fund to finance or fund their programs.
Kevin?
I actually would support the model that you just suggested, because it definitely sounded very wishy-washy about the whole streaming thing. So I definitely support them offering the classes. I think that's going to be great for the community. That portion of the requesting to be $4,000, but I would definitely request that now, if they say like we wanted to provide streaming because citizens couldn't access the content, so we needed to do that, it seems reasonable that if they do go ahead and purchase the equipment and need that, as an additional thing, that we provide that to them. But if they're just asking for an additional $4,000 for something they might do, that doesn't really make sense to me.
It goes back to what he was saying also, that they're discouraged because that also reduces their ticket sales too.
I think, okay. So if we said, to Jennifer's point, granted them a $4,000 fee and then agreed to reimburse them for any streaming costs up to $4,000.
I say leave that out completely. Leave that out completely.
I agree with that.
Leaving it out?
No. I agree with what you said.
I agree.
Yeah,
with the proposal you just
that is perfectly. That's perfectly logical to do that.
Telling not to stream. I mean, I'm not.
Well, I just like I said, they were discouraged about having that because that reduced their ticket sale as well, and they weren't completely 100% about moving forward. Why fund it and say, well, you're going to have this money if you go ahead and use it, but they're not even 100% sure about using it because they realize that streaming it reduced their ticket sales. why encourage them to say, oh, we'll have this fund for you if you just go forward with it, when they're not really wanting to reduce their ticket sale?
I would say that, I'm so sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I would say that, I do think that there's a segment of our population that still is, afraid to go out or has, concerns and stuff. So I think that having that option available to people isn't a terrible thing to do. And again, it's one of those things where if you give them the option and they don't take any action on it, we still save the money. But if they do and they provide it to their people, they can make that choice. If they do ultimately decide that it's going to hinder ticket sales, then they just don't access the money and save $4,000. To me, that's a fair compromise.
Yeah, on a more global scale on this thing, you're talking about $4,000. Number one. Secondly, if you followed this organization for any number of years, as I have, they've poor-boyed it all along, with their members carrying the load for a good portion of the expenses that they have done. And they are extremely active, as you know, in the community. Haven't charged and have always been there when they've asked to be there, plus some. I mean, it's the history. It just, I don't get it for $4,000. I just don't get it.
With all due respect, even if it's $1,000, why put it out there saying, you're going to have this one if you just go forward with it, when they're contemplating on not having it? It's just like saying, here's the money, throwing it out to you, just go ahead and come and grab it.
Did you hear what the arrangement?
I heard the arrangement. I'm saying, why have it out there when they were contemplating of not doing it? Basically, you're encouraging them to go forward with it by saying that here's the money you could get to Senate, getting it back if you go forward with it.
Would provide our citizens an avenue to see the chorale if they weren't in a position to go in person.
Again,
is that a bad thing?
Again, you're encouraging them to spend more money just because it's there.
To your point, the idea of having them, spend the money, or if they're going to stream and we'll reimburse them, I think that does make sense, because I don't think we want to get into the management of their operation. They're the ones who are going to make the decision that is best for the corral. And so if they got into the streaming and figured out it's actually hurting us, I suspect they would cut it off, and they would.
Or they would come back and ask for more.
Well, they wouldn't keep doing it if it was hurting them. So I'm saying we would leave the operational piece up to them to make the decision. And if they do spend the money and find out that it's beneficial, then we would reimburse them. Otherwise,
so if they spend the money and the ticket sale goes down, basically what it turns out to is they're going to come back and ask for more money.
But I suspect I don't know if everything's quite that cut and dry. I think they would change if they saw they were hurting themselves along the way. They would change their. They're
being funded by the city.
No, because they're performers and they want people to come listen to them sing.
If that's the whole idea, why put it on stream?
So people can access the performance from online, like we had to. Chamber of Commerce events and multiple things where we enjoyed their performances because it was online. So,
okay, let's move on. We're not final tonight, but let's move on. I find it interesting, though, that we do have the orchestra and the chorale are pursuing two different models for tickets. And I suspect that one of the two groups will merge to the other, and I have no idea which way that's going to go. So just keep that in mind. All right, orchestra request for $14,800.
I'm going to voice the same, that this is going to continue to go up if they don't charge fees, which is, I understand that they want to provide free services, but this is going to continue to go up if that's the path that they're going to take.
Understood?
I think that they actually voiced a much better plan for They did say that COVID hurt them, so they're asking for a little bit more, but they voiced basically a 5-year plan on how they are going to try to become self-sustaining. I do think that we should give them at least the benefit of the doubt to try to go down that path. And obviously, if they come back next year and the ask is the same or higher, then we can analyze it at that point, basically asking, well, why haven't you started implementing these things that you just presented to us this year? I say we give them a chance. I mean,
well, if you look at the funding from last year and what they anticipated to what the actual is, and you're going to what they're anticipating projected income, it's far different from what they actually anticipated projected last time also. So it looks like they cut down quite a bit, but asking more from the city.
They quit meeting. Well, they quit performing. They quit doing, I mean, it's not even beginning to compare to the 2020 budget. Cliff?
Yeah. Do you have any insight on why they're so adamant about not charging?
Yes, I do. They have their view is that they are a community service, that they are part of the Coppell community, and they want to make music available to everyone. And that is their philosophy. Now, the other thing is they're a relatively new group. They're still growing. They're still recruiting members, and so they know that they can't charge they can't charge a $50 fee. They're not the Dallas Symphony Level Orchestra yet. So
I like the yes.
What's that?
I like the yes.
Yeah, I threw that in very strategically. So they're still working on their membership. They're still looking to grow. And they're using it as a community outreach, and that's how they see themselves. The chorale and the orchestra, you ask them to go play for something, and they're going to be there. Both groups have been very supportive of city functions, and that's how they see themselves operating.
Sounds like an infinite game plan.
The orchestra has got a good, to Kevin's point, they've got a good strategy for moving forward. They're definitely in the infinite game side. All right. Coppell Historical Society, 2000.
No change from last year, correct?
No change. MetroCrest Services at $90,000, also no change. I would like to point out, this says the last time we heard from them was in 2015. We actually hear from Tracy about twice a year, so that date was not quite right.
Deceiving.
So MetroCrest, just to give you an idea, has got they were I think it's an understatement to say that they were terribly hard hit this past year. We actually funded them with additional funding this past year, and I was extremely surprised to see this number not going up this year. I was very surprised to see it not go up.
Was it COVID funds that we
did fund?
Yeah.
We did. We funded them, what, 230,000?
County, federal funds.
All right. Next one is the Woven Community Clinic. This one is one of Mark's favorites. This one acts and behaves very similarly to the Children's Advocacy Center. They're a very solid niche group. They provide very specialized services to our citizens for very, very specialized needs. And it's very definitely use-based.
So question is on the MetroCrest and like the Woven. I know you said the Children's Advocacy Center and the Christian Community Action, they actually specifically the funds are used for, are these the same as well for the MetroCrest and the Woven?
Yes.
Specifically?
Yes.
And there's no change from last time, right?
Nope. Okay, last one, YMCA. An increase from 20 to 30,000 this year. We heard they're still gone.
I would like to hear from the other council members on this one. I probably have a little bit more trouble with this one, and maybe just because I don't understand the increase. I can't tell if it's just a scholarship thing or if they're actually increasing their programs. And here's the thing: is I actually feel pretty comfortable if this, especially if this is like just a 1 year sort of COVID issue that maybe a 20,000 like they historically, or like they did last year, plus a 10,000 one-time grant might make sense because it may be a special situation. But I guess I'd like to hear from the rest of y'all about what y'all think about this. This is the one I probably struggle a little bit more with.
I made a note while he was talking that this was a one-time $10,000 increase for COVID.
Well, and when I questioned it, I guess I didn't get quite the same feeling that maybe, I got the impression maybe it was going to be an ongoing thing. So maybe I just misunderstood.
I usually don't write something down unless I heard it and it said one time.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but that's what I wrote down.
And that would be, I don't know how we would.
I'm actually with you, but I didn't have the sense that it was just a one time, but also it wasn't clear as to some certain things that certain data that he didn't have, and I just didn't get the answers that I was asking.
Well, that, and I don't have an issue with the one time. If it's a one time 10,000 because there's more scholarships or something, that makes sense to me. So I don't know how we would designate it. I don't want it to show up on the paper as the standard is now 30,000.
Jennifer,
We can do the same thing in the contract.
Okay.
We'll say it's a $20,000 contribution plus a one-time $10,000.
Okay. I mean,
Unless somebody else to give you some more information.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there was the information about the percentage of Coppell residents that are being supplemented or served, and how many scholarships and things like that.
Yeah. All right.
I would like to see that number. How many Coppell residents are getting subsidy? It is, I think, we didn't have the number obviously today. So if I have to vote, I vote for 25,000 as of now.
25 fixed or 25 fixed?
Well, he might only asking for one time.
What?
It might have only asked for one time 10,000 increase, but you want to keep the 25 fixed?
No, well, just for this year. Next year,
okay.
Any group can ask any amount they want. We can decide what amount we want to give.
I'm comfortable going back to staying at 20. Because a lot of things weren't clear, and we weren't even sure how many Coppell residents were being subsidized of all those subsidies.
Well, I guess I'm struggling because he said 78%. I mean, that to me is a fairly specific number.
78% were Coppell of the members or Coppell residents, but he didn't have the number of like the
subsidy.
Can I go back and ask him for that?
I think he was going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, but I would feel very comfortable. Sorry, I would feel very comfortable with just like automatically saying like the 20,000 from last year is do that. Kind of almost like can we like take a flyer and decide later if we want to give them the extra 10,000 based on the number that, or the additional information?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. That's what I would feel comfortable doing.
Actually, the 25 would be a kind of a benchmark for going forward, so that would actually end up, in my opinion, costing us more.
No, I would agree, 20,000, giving, I'm okay with only giving 5,000, some kind of stipulation. I don't know what that exact language would be.
Let's let them get back to us.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, we made it through the list. I guess I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Casey, I think, who is our budget review process person.
Okay, before we start, just to be clear, you gave clear direction on YMCA as far as what you're asking for.
Yes.
We understand the ones that you've done. You have two outstanding that you have not made any declaratory statement as far as what to do. How do you want to handle that going forward? And that is on the Coppell Community Chorale and the Community Orchestra, because those numbers are hanging. And that we have to have something, or we don't have to have anything. We just need some direction.
So I had no dispute on the 14.8 for the orchestra.
I don't think we heard it that way.
That's the way I heard it.
Okay. All right.
And for the
No, he voiced it.
Yeah, I said,
That's the reason why I said there was,
Right.
there's five of you,
okay.
not including you.
And I would agree reducing 14.8 to 12,000.
I would like to see them get the full amount to give them an opportunity to execute their plan, because I think that they did a better job of explaining how they were going to try to proceed and move forward. I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt to try to execute their plan. That's what I would like to see.
Don?
I'm okay with the 14.8. What they asked for, I'm fine with it.
Good? Yeah. All right, we got a 14.8. What was the other one?
The 8,000.
Well, I had it down as 4,000 plus the $4,000 on receipt.
Yeah, I'm asking because I don't hear the full.
Okay.
I'm for 4,000 only.
Okay.
I'm for
4,000.
I'm for 4,000 with an additional 4,000 as a reimbursement upon execution of streaming purposes or whatever they, with that purpose being for streaming of their concerts and related equipment and stuff.
For the 4+4 concept.
In the business world, we call that a cost plus, but whatever. Cliff, how do you feel?
Yeah, that's fine.
Which fine?
Well, I don't know.
You coming up with something different?
You got something good, let us know.
That's exactly right. No, I think the 4 and 4.
He said it's 6+2. He wants to.
How many OKs are you meeting on this?
Well, for the night, knowing full well that the council is going to have multiple meetings as we go and finally adopt the budget, we just have to have a number to work with when we finalize the budget.
We'll be talking about it again on the 20th.
Okay.
This is just a preliminary. This is not a final. We're not final until August
10th.
July 29th or August 1st or
We'll have it filed August 5th.
August 5th.
By charter, we have it filed by August 5th.
And on the Y, for budgeting purposes, we'll split it 2010. So that we can at least go forward and have some numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's the clarification.
Thank you. You just want to hammer and catch on the
Yes, because I enjoy that a lot.
All right, thank you very much. We were right at 2 hours. All right,
I have a question.
I can't do that tonight. We can't take questions.
Can you close the meeting and then ask your question?
We're to 40% of the council, they're not here.
We have a quorum with 5 members present.
Well, they were elected.
I'm just curious, y'all asked for citizens input, and you got some citizens here, and I didn't know what type of input was allowed.
Well, that was the citizens' comment at the beginning of the meeting.
Before we got to hear anything. So, how do you get to do any input on something you hadn't heard?
And what are these 3 people? They ran for election, get their butts down here.
My question or comment is this about the hot tax. And there's a ascending balance carried forward year over year. Was now up to what was my
About 500,000.
I would like to see the council consider using as much of that hot tax on this rather than allocating it from the budget.
That would be my suggestion.
That is absolutely the way that we go with it. Yes. Understood.
I mean,
All right, Casey. What's that? Casey, just Casey.
All right. So now we're going to switch over to what we call the initial proposed budget. This is something that happens with Senate Bill 2. I am handing out what we will be publishing tomorrow as part of that. Now, what we have to publish legally and the document that you're seeing before you, I want to stress this is not the final proposed budget on which council will take action. The numbers in here are based on very early estimates. It is not complete. It is clearly not full length. So, having given you my caveat, I'm going to work through just a couple of FYIs to make sure that everybody really understands the impact of Senate Bill 2 and why we are publishing a very condensed budget this early in our budget season, particularly since tonight is our first budget workshop. So budgeting for municipalities is governed by Local Government Code 102. There's several parts of it that says when we have to do certain things, particularly that we have to file a proposed budget 31 days or more prior to a tax rate adoption. The tax rate is scheduled to be adopted during the regularly scheduled August 10th meeting, which puts 31 days this weekend, so we will be publishing it tomorrow. The fun thing about the August 10th approval and vote for the tax rate, Senate Bill 2, whenever it changed the tax code, also requires us to call an election should we go over 3.5% of revenue on existing property taxes. We can't know that until appraisal values are provided to us by the appraisal district at the end of this month. So to give council flexibility, what we do is we backtrack 78 days according to election code from the general election that first Tuesday in November. The last meeting in which we could adopt before that 78-day cutoff is that August 10th meeting. So, as I said, the changes that the legislature at the state level made to the different codes that affect how we present budget essentially shortened and raised our timeline up at least a month. Any questions so far?
That's if you want to do the election on November, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So, could you please explain on August 10th, we will basically have two options and what those two choices are or options?
Are to vote for a tax rate that evening. If council before that time decides that they would like to not do that, then we are looking at a maximum tax rate situation in that session that we could vote on at a later time, but we would not be able to call an election.
Everybody got the nuance there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is all new stuff, so it's not, we've only been into this a year now, so year two. Correct. This is year two. Don?
Real quick to clarify that last thing you just said. So if we didn't decide to vote on the tax rate that night, we would just choose the maximum tax rate without having to go to the voters? Is that what you're saying? Did I understand that right?
You'd be able to vote on any tax rate that keeps the revenue increase under 3.5% on existing property.
Okay.
And we won't be able to calculate that until we have values from the appraisal districts on July 26th of this month.
So since we're headed down that path, Casey, explain a little bit about what would happen should we decide to go over the 3.5% rate.
So should council decide to adopt a tax rate that takes revenues on existing properties over 3.5%, then you would need to not only vote on that proposed tax rate before that 78-day mark at a regular meeting, but you would also have to call an election. And then we would have to coordinate with Dallas County and City Secretary to make sure that we have all of our information on the ballot for the general election at the first Tuesday in November.
And further continuing down that path, on that election date, the referendum would either pass or fail. If it passed, then we would go forth with the new rate. If it failed, what would we do?
We revert. So
Basically, you create two budgets.
Mm-hmm.
To revert to what rate?
Whatever is the 3.499 rate.
If the new rate of 5, 6, or 7, or whatever it is failed, then you would automatically revert back to the 3.499.
Okay,
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and then again, I just want to stress that this is only being published tomorrow because we have these legal requirements. The numbers that are included cannot be finalized until we have appraisal values. Everything in here is based on estimates. I have a lovely little disclaimer on that first page and also within the budget message. We will have the full-length final proposed filed with the City Secretary by August 5th, and that is charter directed. Any questions there?
So I've got a really dumb one here, but are we really going to publish this with 0 or 0%?
Yes, sir. That is, and we'll flip over to the next slide. I have to kind of walk you through the actual document that you're looking for. So on that first page where it says we are raising more dollars by 0%, that is actually from local government code. The portion that is in your packet, it's 102.005B. It says that we have to have this very specific language. If you have been watching or participating in prior year budgets, you'll notice that the first cover page always has some sort of language that is very similar to this, that even dictates the font size that we have to use.
And the reason it's 0 right now is we're projecting a 0% growth rate in the tax value. So that's why it's saying 0% increase in tax revenue on existing properties.
I'm sorry, Don?
I've got, you can tell me to stay in my lane if I'm wrong, but that doesn't read right to me because it says we're not increasing the budget, but then the next sentence says we are increasing the budget. Because of that amount, of the 0 amount, 371, does that make sense? Am I the only one that doesn't
provides us direction on how to do the math and exactly how we must word it.
Is government math somewhere? Is that what?
It is state mandated direction on
well,
how we phrase
it reads weird because the first statement says there's not an increase.
We can tax new value and it not fall into any of the calculations. So that's what we're proposing we're going to get from new value added.
Okay, and that makes sense. It just says of that amount.
Yeah.
So of the 0, 370,000 of it. Okay.
It's from new property.
Well, no, that makes sense. I just.
Just so you know, we don't have to agree with anything that you're saying.
Well, it says total property taxes. We're saying total property taxes are not going up, but then we're saying, but total property. The next sentence says we are going up.
We're saying on existing property.
Senator Bettencourt knows exactly what this means. That's who wrote all this legislation.
Okay, I'll be quiet. It just doesn't.
The first part is existing. The second part is new.
Right.
It doesn't say that though.
You're right.
Right.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
We've had a year where we said we raised taxes a negative dollar amount because we don't have the flexibility to word this grammatically correctly.
All right.
All right, so then going from the cover page, if you flip over to the next 2 pages for what I call our budget disclaimer message, this just gives you some highlights of really what's in the numbers that you'll look at. Again, these are not finalized. These are all based on estimates. One of the things that is really important to note here is that in the section where we talk about the overview, one of the requirements in a proposed budget is that we have to list a tax rate. In this, we are saying we are looking at keeping a flat tax rate of 58 cents. All right, and then the last whole bit of it, the last 18 pages, they are made up of 4 different color-coded sections that all meet one of the additional 4 requirements for a proposed budget according to local government code. We do have to have something that says there's revenues and expenditures for the prior year, for the current year, and for the proposed year, along with the debt obligations for the city. If you are thumbing through and you're looking at the different color bands, anything that has green on it, that references prior years, so our most recently closed fiscal year, which is fiscal year 20. Whenever you get to the next 5 pages that are blue, that is our current year amended budget. Whenever you get to the next 5 pages that are purple, those are current estimates for next year's proposal. Again, these are not final numbers. We will be developing them over this month, and we will shore them up at the end of the month, and we'll present those to you during that final review on the 29th and include them in the proposed budget that gets published on August 5th. The last 3 pages in there that are orange, that is just a summary of the current outstanding debt obligations that are owed by the city. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about our initial proposed budget.
Sorry, I think I'm moving to, and that's all, folks. This is the craziest thing that we do.
Yes.
We do a lot of things with me. This is the craziest thing.
We need to get you guys to meet Senator Denton.
No, he's right. He's right. I thought we had that.
Okay, I've got one question, and this is going back up to page 2, Casey. On the overview.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I think I know what you're going to tell me, but I have to hear you say it, so I apologize. We talked about staff has prepared a budget totaling $119 million, which is a 3.22% increase from last year. How can you not say that on the front page when you have it on the second page?
It's property. The front page is the property tax.
Correct.
And this is expenditures.
Yes, the $119 million total all revenue sources. The cover page is only specific to property taxes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That was too logical.
After what we just talked about, I can understand.
Okay, council questions? I would encourage you to look at the proposed, what is it, the purple? No, blue. I guess it is purple, not blue, but it's purple. Look at the initial proposed budget and basic questions for Casey on that in Jennifer, because that's really where it's going to be coming from.
It's true, but we have these other meetings that are going to come up where
We'll have preliminary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
The details for like the special revenue funds and water sewer will be coming in your next packet. And then the general fund will be in the 22nd meeting.
so that's what we're basically going to get walked through everything in the subsequent meetings that are coming throughout the month. Okay.
We'll do them by, not necessarily by fund, but by group. I'm not an accountant, so I know that's not a good word, but that's the way I think of it. I mean, not even, it's not, well, not.
Fund type?
Type.
Fund
Thank
type.
you. There you go.
All right.
All right, we have one more item, the general discussion.
Questions, anybody? All right, Jennifer?
We have one more item, it's under general discussion, just kind of walking me through the timeline.
So as I mentioned, Senate Bill 2 adjusted our timeline, and it has some additional requirements, one of which is we must publish a notice before, at least 7 days before the actual vote that you will take on August 10th. And in that notice, we have to publish a vote that council takes about a maximum proposed rate. So on the July 27th meeting, we will ask council to vote on a proposed tax rate. That is considered the maximum rate that you would take under advisement and vote on during that August 10th meeting. But because the tax code requires us to publish a notice with a record vote before you vote, you will essentially get to vote twice.
Just the maximum, but not the actual.
Correct.
Did you see the moment when my brain just started to
You're
melt right there?
taking a vote
Preliminary
prior
vote.
to the time we actually get a assessed valuation.
So is that going to be at the tax rate, or is that going to be at the amount of tax revenue for next year?
The rate itself.
And so that number is going to be, is it going to be the 0.580?
We are open to direction from council, but that is what we are proposing based on the initial proposed at this time.
Strong answer. Strong answer.
And we really need to get through the rest of the review process before we come up with that number.
We get new values every Friday, so we're monitoring it so we'll be able to kind of give you a better rate probably in a couple weeks, because we can see where the values are actually going to be coming in.
Don?
So this is going to be really stupid, but are there rules of the road for what this maximum tax rate is going to be? I mean, do you want it to be as close to 58 cents, or can it be $1? I mean, what? No.
Don't invite that. Don't invite that.
So that's just the maximum. What are the parameters of how you determine what it is?
Yeah, in terms of maximum rate, I'm saying this today, knowing that the numbers, who knows what the numbers are going to do, especially what's going on right now. At best, you're talking about take your rate 3.499. I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying that if you're going to do a maximum rate, we're not going to give you a budget that's going to exceed that. How about that?
Okay.
They don't, it's all recorded, the one raised to one.
Lots of people showing up at the public.
No, so is this the first year we have to do the maximum?
No, we have to do it last year.
Okay.
But council decided we were not going to go above the 58 cents, so we then could push everything and go to our normal timeline.
Right.
Okay.
Again, that's the kicker. If you don't go above the 3.499, even with an estimate. But last year, I'm not going to belabor this point because I know y'all are tired for the night, but last year was so messed up because of COVID. The appraisal district undershot all the values. They even told us that. So we had to make our best estimate of what the number for the tax rate. This year, at least, we have consistent numbers coming in, so we know we can probably get you really close as far as what the rate will be. But for your specific question, I would not recommend anything above the 3.499.
So would y'all recommend what the maximum ought to be, or are we going to come up with our
We'll give you a recommendation.
Okay.
So if you think about it from your standpoint, if you said a buck, can you imagine
That was for illustrative purposes. Only.
And we're not recommending that.
So just to give you an idea, I did a real quick calculation, the 3.499 over our current rate would give us a 0.6000. So it would not be any higher than that.
Okay. Okay.
And that 3.499 is on the maintenance and operations side. The state legislature still allows for the debt portion of the tax rate to go wherever it needs to go.
Okay. And M&O is, what is it, 48 cents or something, that thereabouts, 49%,
48 cents, and then
48
that's
change.
about almost 10 right now.
Okay.
It's going to that.
It's going to it, okay.
All right. Good questions, guys. This is not easy, and it's changing almost year to year. There's a lot of nodding down behind me. Do we have anything else? Yes, Jeff.
Thank you. There are 4 more budget hearings like this, or 3 more?
3 more.
There are 3 more. The next one will be July 20th, where we'll cover water sewer fund and special revenue. On the 22nd, we'll talk about the general fund and debt. And then on the 29th, after we get values, that'll be our final review.
Okay, my point is, tonight's meeting, portion of the budget was covering less than 1% of the budget.
That's correct. 0.4%.
0.4%. Of the next 3 meetings, what percentage total of the budget is going to be discussed?
The remaining,
Yeah, it's going to be, so it's all 100%?
yeah, because we'll do special revenue funds and water sewer at the next one.
Okay, I didn't get that impression from that, I'm sorry.
No, and then general fund and debt, which is the tax-supported ones, will be done at the 22nd.
So the water sewer fund will be about 50% of the budget. 50%?
Less than 20%.
I thought that was the 60 million of pass-through and 30.
Water sewer is only about 19, less than 20 million.
General fund, 55 to 70.
I'm thinking of the 119 million, isn't it?
So the 119 million is all.
Right.
And of that, roughly 60 to 70 million of it is general fund.
Okay.
And then about 20 million is water sewer.
Okay.
And made up to the 17 special revenue.
I'm thinking revenue, not fund. I'm sorry.
And each one of the meetings has citizens' comments.
At the beginning.
And then on the final review, there'll be a citizens' comment section as well. And there'll be the public hearing on the 10th.
So Jeff makes a good point, right? I mean, how are they supposed to comment on something they haven't heard when you have a citizen's appearance in the beginning and they don't know what we hear at the end? So.
Well, and again, I defer to the council.
And I mean, you're invited to come and participate in the budget process, but, and I'm not complaining, I'm making an observation. If you're asking for input, but then, and I realize this meeting's so long, you guys, 30 minutes past the posted time that we're supposed to meet already.
So I would invite the public to reach out to the city staff, primarily Mike, and final questions to the finance department. They can answer any questions or walk anyone through, and come to the next July 20th meeting and have their speech at the citizens appearance. And then especially concerning what happened tonight, because to be honest with you, we don't know what we're going to hear in detail until we get in here ourselves. I mean, we know what the agenda is, we read the stuff, but there's a lot of, that's why we have a meeting, to sit and talk out face to face. Yes, we deal with this, and that we recognize it's a problem. We end up with the same thing sitting around the table. That's why the meetings tend to go a little long. if you, you know, I'm open to suggestions on that. I'm not more than willing to have comments made.
Well, I think it's good that you did accept or at least heard what you wanted to say, even if it's not at the citizen's appearance time period. Because it's true. I mean, we've invited them and they don't know what they're looking at. We don't know what we're looking at, but at the same time, we want to hear what they're saying. So I think it's only fair that we give them an opportunity to say something, especially if they're here, to learn about it and also provide input.
Mike, I have a question. I know in school, they have an email address called input@coppellcisd.com, right? Input@coppellcisd.com. So they can send questions and they answer.
We've had citizens last year during the budget process, they sent us a lot of questions. So citizens are.
Which email address can they send?
They send it to CMO or they send it directly to finance.
Okay.
You know, or they send it to city council
Yeah.
and then it gets forwarded to us.
That we see, but I don't know.
Did I understand your question that email was sent out during the meeting itself, or was it prior to?
What is your question again, Jeff?
I'm trying to understand your question.
Yeah.
Was your question of the ISD process, did they have that email set up so that those emails were received during the meeting to keep from, those questions are received at that email address to keep the meetings from running long?
No, it has nothing to do with the meeting itself. It is just a way of getting input from the community so that
Prior to or after the meeting?
Yeah, it's period.
Anytime. Any subject. Maybe we should put that to email address you mentioned, CMOs and the other one in one of these documents so they can send input. Say, citizens can send emails to these after listening to the archive from online.
He's like, what?
See, Carol.
They're watching.
Thanks for your comments, Jeff.
I'm not trying to be a problem.
All right, anybody have anything else for us tonight? I think we're at the end of the agenda. It is 9:34 and we are adjourned. 8:34, sorry. 8:34 and we are adjourned.
Pretty cat.